Hello everyone, welcome to the Ginger Snaps here, where I'll be discussing horror movies with you guys in a very blunt way. I am your host, Steven Harrold, and in today's video, I will be discussing and reviewing Creepshow, which was released on November 12th, 1982, 40 years ago today, and it is now officially celebrating its 40th anniversary. Back in 1982, when this movie was released, a lot of people had great praise for this film, especially when you have the horror icons such as Stephen King, Tom Savini doing the special effects, and George A. Romero directing this film. This film resonated with horror audiences all across the world, and of course, is the catalyst to all the other type of anthology films that have come out. Most recently, as we all know, Trick or Treat. So enough of me rambling about the introduction of this film. Let's get into my review for Creepshow. Of course, we do have a tie-in to this film, which is essentially the thing that really ties into all these stories all together with this film. We have an abusive father played by Tom Atkins, who is famous for, Night of the Creeps, and of course, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Playing an abusive father who, discovers his son's been reading horror magazines, or horror comic books at this rate, and, really just gives him shit for it, and then his son really wants to seek revenge. He does get his comeuppance right at the end of the movie, as the final tie-in to all these other stories, but this movie's not really known for that little dynamic that is at the beginning and at the end of the movie, and kind of little cuts in between all the stories. It's the stories themselves that everyone loves to hear about and always like to talk about. So I'm going to go one by one and what I think about all the stories of Creepshow. First story, as we all know, is Father's Day, where we have a very wealthy family waiting for the arrival of their Aunt Bedelia, and she has been rumored or has been pretty much given the label of killing her father on Father's Day. So every Father's Day, she comes by with the family to celebrate Father's Day, and as she goes and visits the grave, her dad comes out of the grave, and he really wants his fucking cake. Now, I do not mind this story at all. I mean, like, we did have Ed Harris in this, doing his weirdest fucking dancing, for sure. Whatever the fuck that it was. But, yeah, we get some good characters in this one. The story itself, just the dad coming back from the grave, seeking revenge, really wanting his fucking cake. The kills are not too bad. I mean, like, one of them gets their neck snapped, and ultimately their head's on a silver plate, and he's happy that he's finally got his cake. But yeah, I guess what I would have to say is probably the best kill is actually Ed Harris's kill. He gets crushed by a fucking tombstone. Ooh, fuck, that's gotta be a horrible way to go. In story number 2, we have the lonesome death of Jordy Verrill. And of course, it's about a farmer who just stumbles upon a meteor, but this meteor has the ability to grow weeds and grass and all this plant life around it and everything it touches. Now, this fucking story is very famous for having Jordy Verrill played by Stephen King. And this is probably one of my favorite Stephen King portrayals because he's kind of a nutball in this one. I mean, like, the whole, meteor shit. And fucking, I absolutely love his character in this movie. He might be one of my favorite characters of the whole entire film. But, I mean, this is just him. Like, he discovers this meteor, and then all of a sudden, all shit goes haywire as soon as he realizes this thing is growing on him after he touched it, and it consumes his body to the point where there's no coming back. Very good story that comes after the first one. And like I said, Stephen King's performance in this movie, in this role, is just one of the most memorable that you guys, if you haven't checked this out, you have to definitely check this out. He does a killer of a fucking performance. And man, what bad luck Jordy Verrill actually fucking had. Story number 3 is something to tide you over. It is about a man who finds out that his wife is having an affair with this other guy he knows very well, who's a news anchor, and how he seeks revenge on them is burying them neck down in a sand at the beach where the tides will essentially drown them. Now, this certain story has 2 actors which we've never seen in a horror movie role like this before. As we all know, Ted Danson, who is known for Cheers and, 3 Men and a Baby, he does an amazing job when it comes to his fucking role. But, even though he does a great job, it's Leslie Nielsen who steals the fucking show here. Leslie Nielsen, as we all know, is very huge in the comic world. He is a big comedian. He is one of the best of all time. Fucking Naked Gun, all these fucking movies he's done. But this was the first time I ever got to see him in a villainous horror role. And it looks like it was something he enjoyed doing. This was something that was new, something out of his element, and something that most likely was up his alley if he just continued with it. I loved his performance in this movie. He is the one standout where, and I remember watching this for the first time, like, wait, Leslie Nielsen is in a horror movie? And he's not in a comic relief? He's the villain? Holy shit. So do your guys selves a favor and watch this movie, especially for Leslie Nielsen. If you have seen him in comedies, left, right, and center, this is definitely going to be a performance you would definitely not want to miss. Story number 4 is The Crate. Now, this is actually the longest story throughout the whole entire movie. It is about a crate that's at this university. This 2 wealthy friends who are teachers or whatever, they are at this party. One of them has to go back to after the discovery of this crate, and they don't know exactly what's in the crate, especially since it's a crate from the Arctic Expedition from 1834. So what could be inside this? Meanwhile, we have a subplot where we have one of the characters who has one of the worst wives ever. Like, such a fucking bitch. Now, of course, that wife is played by Adrienne Barbeau, and she fucking, after how many times I fucking had seen her in The Fog and everything else, different fucking story, right? She plays a very convincing fucking bitch. I mean, just call me Billy. Like, oh my god. I just couldn't wait for her to die. But what's in the crate? It's a monster. It's some sort of monster that can't stop eating. It devours everyone in its path that it gets its hands on, or its claws on, actually. And then there's a nice subtle twist with this where the husband just, spoiler alert, I mean, it's been 40 fucking years, so how you haven't seen this movie, I don't know. The husband finally gets a way out of this marriage that he just absolutely hates and decides, you know what? I'm going to feed that thing her. That's fucking great. I don't mind this story. This is one of those stories where I got really hooked into it real quick. And it's got this amazing payoff too. And funny enough, Fluffy the monster is one of the most popular characters when it comes to Creepshow for sure. And a lot of people just can't get enough of Fluffy. And, the creature's name is just so adorable. The polar opposite of what the creature actually is. And of course, the final story of this film is They're Creeping Up on You. It is about a guy who is obviously a rich asshole. He's practically the Ebenezer Scrooge of the 1980s. Who's a germaphobe. He doesn't like insects. He doesn't like bugs, whatever. His whole entire penthouse suite is just painted white. It's all clean, everything. And he is having a cockroach problem. And he just can't seem to get rid of them. It's one of those stories that is to me, not quite the best way to end an anthology type of film. But it's still enjoyable nonetheless. It's fucking disgusting though, especially at the end where he meets his demise. Tom Savini, dude, you do a great job. Fuck, that is gross. It's one of those stories that I definitely don't mind. It's a story I don't really have too many problems with. It's just, the cockroach thing. If you guys have a bug problem or you have a fear of cockroaches or bugs, you might want to skip over this story. But if you can handle it, just fair warning, his death is pretty fucking gross. In conclusion of all those stories, it's an amazing anthology, but for some odd reason, I feel like when it comes to the stories' placements themselves, I feel like maybe they could have, you know, just swap them around a little bit. Like, for example, for me, of course, Father's Day would be the starter. It's to get everyone in the mood for this. Then I would have something that tied you over at second, because you gotta get that fucking performance of Leslie Nielsen right out there. Then the lonesome death of Jordy Verrill, because it's a one-man show. It's Stephen King. It's a perfect fucking middle to that. Now, they're creeping up on you would be the fourth last one, and then the last story I would have put The Crate, because since it was a lot longer, and it's just something about the beginning having a monster coming from the grave and the end having a monster coming from a crate, it just seems like it would have been the perfect tie-in and the final like nail in the coffin, or crate at this rate, of the story, and all these other stories tying in together. And then I would have just been completely fine with that. So that's probably my only minor nitpick when it comes to the things I just didn't like about the movie, which is the placements of the stories. If they had done it the way I would have loved it even more, I would have loved it a lot more. Creepshow is just one of the movies that has stood the test of time. Like, it's no secret that 1982 just happened to have bangers of fucking movies coming out. I wasn't born in 1982. I was born a decade later. But with Creepshow, of course, there was a fan base there from the start. I mean, we had a sequel. We have now the TV series on Shudder. We have all the merchandise. We have everything that needs to be addressed. And Creepshow is going to be one of the movies that, after, celebrating already 40 years, it's going to go on even longer. If more anthology movies keep coming out, they're hearkening back to Creepshow. And that's where I think Creepshow really just absolutely thrived on. And it's no wonder a lot of people adore this fucking movie nonetheless. So guys, for my rating, I'm going to give Creepshow a 9 out of 10. So tell me guys, what do you think of Creepshow? What was your favorite story? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you also hit that thumbs up and also subscribe for more content. And don't forget to hit that bell notification every time you want to get notified about all the other videos coming out on this channel. Anyways guys, that's it for me. This has been the Ginger Snaps here. I'm Steven Harrold, and I will talk to you guys later.